Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 300 of the
This
Caliber
is
podcast.
ACP!
What was that?
This is ACP because you said 300.
Yes, that's true.
This is ACP!
Yeah.
I'm keeping this. The second round of the podcast is a little bit for everyone. Yes, we have done 300 episodes. And so I, of course, am Weer'd Beard. But we have an ACP Round Table, which you've already heard a bunch of. Of course, you've heard the lovely tones of Aaron Paulette. How you doing, Aaron?
We will hug in the shade.
We have David.
Hello.
We have Oddball.
I like knives.
And we have in a battle with his eyelids, Xander Opal.
Yeah, it is. It's planting season.
So you've been sowing your wild
Xander
oats?
full permission to duck out whenever he needs to go to bed because, yeah, he's going to be... What time are you getting up tomorrow, Xander?
I get to sleep in till 6.
That for me, that is sleeping in.
Yeah. So, Xander, when you do feel the need to duck out, please be an airline.
Oh, announce your departure.
Yes.
Oh.
I thought that was a known one.
So how you been, Aaron?
Last week was, but I'm surprisingly good today, and I've been surprisingly productive. I don't know what the magic formula is. I probably won't be like this for another week or month, but I'm enjoying it while I can.
Well, we'll take it. How about you, David?
Of course you will, you dirty boy.
Listen to the latest episode of Handgun Radio, and you'll hear all about my last week.
That's true.
But should I do a quick recap?
You can do a quick recap, yeah.
Lots of peopling, birthday dinner at Chinese buffet, watching my big fat Greek wedding with friends who had never seen it before, hanging out at synagogue on Saturday morning and chatting with the rabbi about how the laws of kashrut would apply to replicated meat from Star Trek. And that was a fun discussion. Sunday was a down day, and today was just paperwork day.
Paperwork.
Yeah.
Oddball, have you bought a new pistol yet?
Since the last time we spoke?
I have not, and it is still really freaking loud outside because of all the damn cicadas.
There's only one here, but it lives in my ear.
That's called tinnitus, David.
Yeah, it's super tinnitus.
This afternoon, it was seriously over 85 decibels of just cicadas going.
They are ready for love.
In all the wrong places. Oh, there was some guy in one of my groups. I forget where he lives. He lives, I think maybe Midwest, and he was doing some lawn maintenance with his tractor, and apparently the cicadas saw his tractor as the biggest, most sexually arousing cicada because they mobbed him.
Oh, the poor man.
Basically, he's driving along and suddenly everything is cicadas, and he said he popped the clutch and jumped off and ran.
But you got to pat each and every one of them.
He wanted to pat them all with a hammer.
Flamethrower. Speaking of which, I wonder if I can get Panya to agree to let me get one of those because it's cicada season.
It's worth a try.
If they're that loud, I've got to imagine she probably would be amiable. And Xander, anything else you have to add?
Let's see here. Been working my butt off. Oops, I gotta remember this is a mag dump, or a round table, not a mag dump.
That's right.
Yeah, working my butt off, trying to keep equipment working, and sometimes succeeding. Also, segment fodder, bought an air rifle intended for bird control, and I've been having some adventures that probably made David wince a couple times with amateur attempts at installing optics and making optics work.
What kind of
I
air
saw
rifle?
your nice tidy workbench that you were doing that on.
Yeah. Tidiness has fallen far by the wayside. I was so looking forward to some range therapy last night too.
Yeah.
What kind of air rifle?
It is a
It's a Gamma, isn't it?
Yeah, Gammo.
Oh, I have one of those. They're awesome. Actually, I have two of those.
One for each hand?
No, one in 22 and the other in 117.
177?
Or that's the thing. I
One-
can't remember if it's 117 or 177.
Yeah, it's 17 caliber.
Okay.
Yep.
But at least, Xander, you did have what looked like a well-qualified assistant.
Yes. Shop Cat was curious as to what I was doing. Very, very unimpressed by the bore sight laser.
Yeah, that's the part that concerns me. You may need to call in specialists to confuse your cat.
She was just chilling out, curled up nearby while I was shooting holes in cardboard and attempting to adjust the scope.
Adjust the unadjustable.
Yeah. It reminded me of that one range trip with Aaron's Mosen when the scope was on the fritz.
Yeah. Why can't I hit anything? Wobble, wobble. Ah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I had several instances of people bringing firearms like that in for work.
I like
One,
it even better when someone's at the range and they're like, the sights are off on this gun, and you pick it up and you just core out the bullseye. Seems fine
Yeah.
to me.
Yep, done that too. Although I try to be a little more polite about it. But
That's much easier to do, to be more polite than weird.
yeah. And there was another scope related story. Oh yeah, there was one guy who he had a carry handle AR. So this is back a few years. He had a carry handle AR and he had see-through mounts on it. So he had probably close to a foot of height over bore.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
What rifle was this again?
It was an older carry handle AR.
Ah, okay.
So he mounted. Now the thing is, they made then carry handle mounts that had a tunnel through them so that you could see the sights without having to lift it another inch or two.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the route he went.
So he got an adapter to put rails on the carry handle and then put see-through sights on that?
He threw scope mounts on that, yes, like the kind you'd find on a lever gun.
Oh, boy.
He could, however, have then put a football-sized suppressor on it.
It's true. But because of how he had set this thing up, the scope was canted. I forget whether it was canted forward or back. And he wound up bottoming out the elevation knob on the scope to the point that he broke it. Or maybe not broke it, but it wouldn't retract. It was all the way to the end of travel. And,
Right.
yeah. And it was like an older, I think it was a Weaver 1-4 or something. I think I might still have it in a box somewhere, honestly, because
Similar to the thing of anyone doing microscopy for the first time, you're on a very, 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 very high magnification, and you're trying to resolve the whatever your slide is in, and then you hear glass breaking.
Black. Yeah.
Yep. Crack the slide.
So we've determined that Xander has the same type of air rifle that I have, and that would be the I don't know if it's a Gamo or Gammo or whatever, but it's the Wildcat Whisper. And those are really good.
Yep.
I attempted to order one after a rabbit came through and ate all the vegetables I had planted for my COVID garden.
Oh,
and I'm
no.
like, fine, I'm going to eat rabbits then. And Amazon then sent me a message saying, no, we don't ship to Massachusetts.
It's a freaking air rifle. Does Massachusetts consider air rifles firearms?
No.
Then what the hell?
I have no idea. I mean, they didn't say anything. They just told me to piss off.
Okay. I mean, that's understandable. We all tell you that. But I was considering getting one of the 22 caliber versions of those air rifles with the built-in suppressors. But I think with my pro deal for only a little bit more money, I could get a decent 22 suppressor. And then, well, I have a lot more options for shooting the critters if they get in the garden.
So this thing's got we're looking at it. It's the Wildcat Whisper air rifle.
They're good products.
In the image I'm looking at, it's got 2 triggers.
The one is the safety. You
Gotcha.
pull the smaller forward trigger back to engage the safety.
Yeah, it's kind of like an early Remington Auto 5. Where
Gotcha.
it's got the sliding. It's not a Garand style because it doesn't protrude through the trigger guard. It's just a sliding lever inside the trigger guard. Completely safe to pull that thing back instead of the trigger.
Gotcha. So you have to push it forward to disengage it?
Yeah.
Perfectly safe.
All right. So we've got some news to cover. Obviously we are recording this as the NRA annual meeting closes, and none of us went. I'd like to change that for next year, at least for myself. I can't speak for anybody else, but
next year is Atlanta.
Yeah, it's Atlanta. So I'll probably go down, and I'll probably stay at the Marriott and be confused over the fact that there's
no
furniture.
Cosplayers.
There's no cosplayers, and there's furniture in the lobby.
And not 60,000 people.
What if I want to recreate the Gun Blog Variety Cast House of Love?
So here's the thing: the whole just being able to wake up and walk to the conference center.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, Atlanta traffic is freaking horrible.
And if I feel the need to leave the conference center for whatever reason, I can just step out and walk back to my room.
Have your afternoon nap.
Yes.
Of course, all of this is dependent upon whether or not there is an NRA next year, and that's a joke we've been making for a while now, but it kind of seems like stuff is iffy.
So
yeah.
I think that we should get matching T-shirts for the next NRA annual meeting, specifically this one.
Oh hell!
Sherman, 1864, Atlanta's original torchbearer. Hold on while I put the fire emoji to your post, David.
Yeah, let me see here.
So that's hot, isn't it?
So that is spicy.
There are a number of them, but that one definitely caught my attention.
I mean, Erin loves that shirt to death because she the sound she makes driving in Atlanta traffic.
Oh hell!
And
the primary sound most people may driving in Atlanta traffic was the sound of their teeth crumbling.
So Erin, just so you know,
Mm-hmm.
When NRA was in Atlanta last time,
Mm-hmm.
that was light traffic compared to what I'm used to in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I have been stuck in rush hour in Atlanta, so but it's all bad. Some is just worse than others.
Yeah, no, it's.
Oh wait, it's not on Amazon, but there is a contender.
I found a great accessory for the T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Is it an arson locomotive?
It's a railroad necktie.
Yeah, but it should be an arson locomotive.
Yeah, but
I got.
neckties.
Yeah, I got you, Xander.
Yep.
I don't get the joke.
Sherman necktie?
I mean, I think the joke was arson locomotive. You've got the locomotive. There's just no arson.
No. The Sherman necktie. He would. One of the things that he'd do was he tore up the railroad and bent and had his soldiers heat up and bend the tracks in half.
Yeah, that was pretty standard for anybody who had a chance to damage railroads, but he made it an art form.
Yeah.
Literally.
So you just bend the rails like straight up?
Well, it wasn't so much bending them, but he would rip up the railroad, pile up the ties, throw the rails on top of them, light the ties, and the heat would basically soften the rails so that they couldn't be reused. Not without going back to a manufacturing facility and getting redrawn.
Yep.
Do I need to come down there again?
But it was to the point that the term Sherman necktie was coined.
Oh, T Public.
Yeah, I'd never heard that before.
Yeah, neither had I.
Oh, T Public.
Huh.
T Public.
Yeah, there's a Wikipedia article
Yep.
to it. And you can see, yeah, he made darn sure that those rails weren't being reused.
Yep. I mean, honestly, just the heating and letting them sag on the fire would have been sufficient. But like I said, art form.
Yeah.
But there's also the link to the T Public T-shirt.
The
Uncle Billy's Barbecue. Yes, burned ends from Atlanta to Charleston. We're gonna get lynched, aren't we?
Yeah, we're making the people, the lovely people of Georgia angry.
I know a number of lovely people from Georgia, and even the ones who live in Atlanta don't like Atlanta.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, there's Atlanteans, and then there's the rest of the state.
Pretty much. It's kind of like New York in that respect, or Massachusetts.
I would have said France versus Paris, but probably the same thing.
That's because you're more cultured.
And I'm actually rearranging it because I've realized that it's out of chronological order. But so at the meeting, it was another spicy one, and so they had the members meeting, and let's see, there it is. Hold on, I'm adjusting the notes on the show notes on the fly. But yeah, so at the members meeting, there was a
douchery abounded. How about that?
Yes, I mean, yeah, it was
just yes.
So obviously this is the first NRA annual meeting since Wayne LaPierre is no longer with the organization. And,
since he stepped down of his own free will and volition.
I know. And
you're so disappointed.
With a lovely golden parachute of the NRA was a victim, and we were told to be repaid, and then we paid him far more than he repaid us for his service, ripping us off. Yeah, this is like a racket. But so they started off the meeting with just to let everyone know, they were like, okay, since Donald Trump is going to be speaking after this meeting, I present that we adjourn in 2 hours. And so that immediately limited the amount of time that members had to address the board of directors.
And then they tried to run out the clock by dragging things out with introductions and other things, just padding it all out.
Yep. And then they introduced a what do you call it? An agenda
resolution.
Item. Yeah, a resolution to do what they've been talking about for a while, and what Wayne LaPierre attempted to do to try to get away from Letitia James.
Well, not quite the same thing as what LaPierre tried to do.
Okay.
Because they're just talking about moving the headquarters from Virginia to Dallas. LaPierre tried to actually move where the organization was incorporated from New York to Texas.
I just assumed that the incorporation was part of that.
I'd have to look at the resolution, but the what was being debated, the points that were being debated were over selling, abandoning the building in Virginia and moving the headquarters itself to Dallas. I didn't hear any chatter about the incorporation, which they probably still can't do because there's still some legal stuff going on, and judges tend to frown upon you trying to flee a state when there's legal action on you.
Yeah, in fact, there are, in some places, for some things, there are laws about fleeing the state ahead of legal consequences.
Including a Texas judge telling LaPierre, I see what you're doing. Stop it.
Yeah. Nuh-uh. Quit.
Yeah.
Well, I meant what you were doing, but quit the NRA, that's fine too.
But wait, there's more to this.
Oh yeah.
There's always more. Carry on.
Oh yeah. So they were saying, all right, we want to move possibly the whole NRA or all that to Dallas, and they presented it as a resolution, and they made all sorts of statements about saying that like the number one cost would be relocating the museum that may or may not still exist, and stating that they would have Texas donors sponsor certain exhibits so that everything would be kind of named. You know, the Cabela's exhibit, to say the Tesla exhibit, but instead, and then they brought up what I think we talked about in the past, is that the NRA building is falling apart, and so they are not,
because they've put off maintenance for what, decades maybe.
Yeah, and so it's got major maintenance and then structural issues. And so it would be easier for them just to sell the damaged building than attempt to rent out the office space. But essentially, they said due to selling off the assets in Virginia and having donors pay for the exhibit halls, it would be an inconsequential amount of money, to which several people called BS on and asked to see more stuff, and there really wasn't anything. They're like, could you give me a number? And no, I don't have a number, but I want you to vote on whether we should do it or not.
I think that we're missing something very important involving, I believe she's newly elected. Two
things. So one, what Aaron is referring to, and the other thing, still dealing with the moving, with Pincus.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron, please go ahead.
Actually, I don't remember which happened first, whether it was Amanda or it was Pincus. I think Amanda
Pincus
first.
was on first.
Okay, well then do that. Well, let's do it as chronologically as possible.
Okay. So Rob Pincus, who, however you feel about the man otherwise, has been on a bit of a crusade for a few years to try to get the NRA to turn around and behave properly.
Mm-hmm. I'll say right now, I have taken issue with things that Rob Pincus has said and done in the past. What he has done on the floor of the NRA annual meeting has never disappointed me.
Yeah. He got up against the motion, and one of the things that he brought up was the fact that this was, in fact, something that the board has been wanting to do, and it was a board-sponsored motion, and a member of the board tried to deny this and say, no, this is a member at large came up with this proposal, and the board had nothing to do with it. And Pincus started calling names. And actually asked one specific person and told and I forget who it was that was on the board that was running the meeting, saying, no, let's ask so and so. Hey, so and so. No, I'm not asking you. I'm asking so and so. Did you have anything to do with writing this proposal? And after calling him out, the board member admitted that yes, it was his idea, and he got a couple regular members to help him with it, and well, he only wrote the first part, and the second part was written by them.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I liked the fact that how surprised Rob looked. It was like, wait, you actually going to tell the truth?
Yeah, actually, and he actually said, "Like, thank you for your transparency and honesty."
Okay,
right.
Unfortunately, speaking of former NRA members and leadership, I got to bail.
All right.
Okay, later, Xander.
Sleep time, Xander.
Have a good flight.
Yeah, good night.
Now, Aaron, tell us about Amanda.
Okay, so Amanda Suffolk-Cool, actually not newly elected, but she was elected last year, and
lives up to her name.
You mean the appellation I gave her?
Yes.
Okay. For people who don't remember, and yes, weird, I remember this is not a mag dump, but I don't remember when I started this, but I started calling her Amanda so effing cool. I don't know if she likes it. She kind of humors me by smiling, I think. But yeah, she was elected last year.
I've heard you call her that in her presence, and she seemed to like it.
Okay, great. So they were discussing this whole business about moving, and the NRA headquarters in, I think, Fairfax is damaged, and as we mentioned, it's a whole it's a total loss. We should just ditch the whole thing. And Amanda is a structural engineer and has been doing this for decades, so she is a subject matter expert in that regard. And she called BS on the proposal that, we've got to move because the building has issues. And she made the analogy that this is like smashing her car with a sledgehammer and then telling her husband they need a new car because the old one is broken. And Charles Cotton, the current president of the NRA, reacted inappropriately. And he cut her off. He interrupted with, "You've only been here, a year?" And basically said some really nasty things, and said nasty enough things that literally the next day, a letter was issued, an open letter, demanding that he apologize for his remarks. But what happened?
And from what I understand, he got a lot of boos and jeers.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Because there were a lot of people who were standing not literally behind microphones, but close enough that they started booing, and it was picked up on the microphones. And per someone who was there, the room erupted in booing loud and long, and they basically drowned him out. And a lot of people, at least one person shouted, "How long have you been running us into the ground?" And yeah, and so with time running out, because we had talked about that before, Amanda called the question for a vote, and the members raised hands for yay or nay, and Cotton said it was too close for him to call, and a lot of people laughed at that because it didn't seem that way to them, and so he asked the secretary to estimate. And, even the secretary said that the motion had lost. It's estimated that it was 60-40 against the move to Texas. And then it was conveniently noon and the meeting was adjourned.
Well, and also, just part of it is the NRA, especially the ILA, is a political entity.
Mm-hmm.
A national political entity. Being a stone's throw from D.C., is a good place for them to be.
Yep.
Yeah. From New York City to DC, you can take trains and planes that'll get you there within a couple hours.
Well, but
I lived.
I'm talking about Virginia.
Yeah, I lived in the DC metro area for 5 years. You can get from the NRA building to DC, depending on the time of day, between 30 minutes to an hour.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was thinking the legal, not the physical.
And so just to tie a little bow on this, because I mentioned there was a letter. Buzz Mills, Bill Bockenberg, and Mark Vaughn are demanding that Charles Cotton issue a public apology for the unprofessional and unbecoming way he treated her. So that's good.
The likelihood of him actually doing that?
Oh, I would say it's approaching zero.
I mean, that's one of those like last refuge of a scoundrel sort of things of the sheep. Who cares if she had just been elected 2 minutes before? She's a member of the board. She's presenting information that she's a subject matter expert on, and she's right. And you've been lying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially saying, we're going to pack up and move the entire NRA, and it'll be inconsequential. To who? I mean, it's just an insane statement.
Now, Weird, can we tease on this episode an upcoming interview? Has that been finalized yet?
It hasn't been finalized yet. I actually haven't heard back from her, but I have. Aaron and I have been talking with Amanda to get her on to get a full on recap of what happened.
Yeah, I believe I phrased it as, we'll give you a platform where you won't be interrupted.
Yeah.
Oh, and of course, with all of this going on, I would feel remiss if we didn't mention, if you would like to know a lot more details about this sort of stuff. Friend of the show, John Richardson at No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent place to go and read up on some of the goings on.
Mm-hmm.
He has a fantastic blog, anyways, and he's a great guy.
So yeah, so there was more shenanigans in the meeting. There was a lot of just general goofiness going on which is very disheartening. And then Trump, everyone went to Trump's speech.
I feel like you could have ended with "and then Trump."
And then Trump.
And then Trump.
I mean,
there's Maud.
Yes, yeah. You remember Donald Trump? Yeah, it's the same dude. I listened to the speech. It was so funny. My wife came downstairs when I was just like, I had heard about Trump's speech, and I went, yeah, let me see if I can find that. And I found it on YouTube, and I started watching it. And then my wife came down the stairs, and after a couple of minutes of the speech, she said, "Can you put on your headphones?"
I'm surprised she lasted a couple minutes.
I mean, honestly speaking, I will tell her right now, I got super duper snippy at her because I put my headphones on, and then she came by to ask me a question, and I'm just like, you told me to put on my headphones. Now I got to take my headphones off. I'm trying to watch this for the show, and I don't like it. But needless to say, it was a standard Donald Trump speech in the fact that he talked about all of his accomplishments. He mugged for the camera. He did all the Donald Trump things, whether you like it or whether you hate it. He was doing it. And essentially he talked almost nothing about firearms for the entire speech. And that made my stomach sink.
Yeah, I think I heard that he did mention hunting.
He did.
Well, that's what the Second Amendment's all about.
Right. Yeah, it's all about hunting deer and
shooting lawyers. And waterfowl.
They were upland bird hunting, David.
I didn't know lawyer was an upland bird.
It is when Dick Cheney's hunting.
There you go.
But yeah, talked a lot about. I was hoping, I was knocking on wood. Pollyanna was coming forward and going, oh, according to Trump himself, and I'm of a mind to believe it. It was Wayne LaPierre that orchestrated the pistol brace ban, or the bump stock ban, and so now that he is gone and we have seen what happens, maybe he's gonna talk about how he had made mistakes and how he's gonna do us right and he's gonna undo that. No, none of that. Really, just his accomplishments on issues that have nothing to do with firearms, and essentially just barely hinting at that he's going to love that. And he kept saying that gun owners don't vote, which I don't.
What?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I saw someone have the commentary on that of the, you're just upset because gun owners apparently didn't come out and vote for you last time around after you threw us under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether this is just Trump being Trump, probably, but there's a certain I'm not really sure what to call it, but it's, gun owners suck because they don't vote, but I need you to vote for me. I mean, insulting the people to whom you're trying to solicit support from, that seems a poor tactic.
Mr. take the guns first and then due process later.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And talking
that
about
was-
looking at a Federalist suppressor ban.
Oh, and was it Don Jr. who was the one who was spearheading the Hearing Protection Act? Was not happy about that.
Yeah.
Which I think that was in there, but that was wasn't that one of the things that was talked about?
Well, one of the stories I've gotten, this is from John Richardson, is that there is word on the street that, well, obviously we talked about potentially that that Donald Trump Jr. might be pursuing the NRA's either board or executive vice president slot.
Yeah, we talked about
But-
that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
but also there is talk that Ronnie Barrett of Barrett Firearms may end up being the next executive vice president.
I mean, he doesn't have anything else to do since he sold his company to
Australians?
some Australian company. I forget who it is. Who, I mean, so far it looks like they're going to keep on with the tradition of Barrett Firearms. They're actually coming out with a couple new guns.
Mm.
At least there's no fear of them moving the manufacturing facilities to their country.
There is that.
Do you know if they are keeping the spite ban to California?
I have not heard anything different.
Okay, good.
Which, yes, I love that Ronnie's response to we're gonna make it illegal for civilians to own your rifle. Okay, cool. The government of California can't own my rifles either.
Mm-hmm.
And if you send
Well,
them back
I'm
to
not,
me
I'm
for
not going to go and
maintenance,
take back the ones that you already own, but if you send them to me to repair, I'm keeping them.
Mhm.
Yes, and I'm not selling you any new ones.
Mm.
Right.
So there has been some speculation as to whether or not Mr. Barrett was a supporter of Wayne. And when we were talking about this before the show, Oddball, you suggested that he had resigned, but I hadn't heard anything definite in that regard.
I don't think it was me who had stated he had resigned, but it wouldn't have surprised me if he had resigned from the board. Along with there was that flood
Mhm.
of people resigning from the board as the rats were jumping ship.
Well, I mean, the problem that I've encountered is trying to find a list of, well, not like literal current board members, but like board
Right.
members from a few years back. It's really hard to find. You know, it goes up to like 2016 or so and then stops. And
Right.
so, yeah, I don't know if he resigned in the 2019, 2020 or not, or if he stuck around. And
And there's also the truth that the man is in his 70s, so
Limited
he
time
almost
offer.
he almost certainly sold his company because he wanted to retire.
Mhm.
And he may have stepped down from the board because he was tired of dealing with stuff
Mhm.
and just wanted to relax for a while.
Okay. I mean, the man certainly knows how to run a business.
So-
Yes.
Oh yeah,
And he's definitely a strong supporter of the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
So we could do worse. And as Oddball said, Aaron said, he's in his 70s. So this wouldn't be a decades-long position.
Right.
Which I think is okay, because actually I was just looking up before, and some historian out there will know off the top of their head, but I was looking up to see what year and when did Wayne LaPierre essentially ascend to the executive vice president position.
I
And-
want to say mid-90s.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then who was it before him?
Nobody knows.
No clue.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
I did know back then, but
I mean, I vaguely knew who the NRA was at that point. So
I think my first membership year in the NRA was mid to late 80s. And then it was kind of intermittent. You know, it would expire. I'd let it go for a couple of years, pick it back up when I was at a gun show and was reminded.
Mhm.
And then eventually I gave up and went life member because I couldn't be bothered to keep up with that.
Yeah, that is the easy one.
Yeah. But like I said, with Ronnie, we could do worse.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of conventions, tossed in another item here. This is something that I am planning on attending, and I believe Oddball has expressed interest as attending as well, is the Gun Owners of America is going to have an inaugural convention in
mid-August in Knoxville.
Yeah, I mean, the time of year, I'm really glad it's inside because, woof.
Right.
But yeah, they're going to be having the mid-August in Knoxville, their Advocacy and Leadership Summit is what they're calling it. And
yeah, it would be kind of silly for you not to go if you didn't have any conflicts, and
yeah, well,
kind of the same for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm planning on blocking out those dates on my schedule so that I don't have conflicts. But August 16th. So when they say mid-August, they really mean mid-August. Yeah. Friday, August 16th through Sunday the 18th. There'll be an industry expo, retailers, etc. So I always like seeing GOA stepping up to.
Well, and also it's one of those things that I mean, it's definitely been true in the past couple of years that, like, I went to NRA last year when it was in Indianapolis, and the numbers were most definitely down.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand, they were significantly down this year compared to last year.
Oof.
So you've got GOA stepping up, basically trying to start their own version of the NRA Annual Meeting, and you have GunCon.
I don't recall hearing about that one.
That's the one that the Gun Collective puts on.
Okay. Yes.
And it just recently happened, I think.
June 29th, 2024, I think.
Okay. So it's about to happen. I knew it was sometime around now. John Patton at the Gun Collective, of course, he's been talking it up since it's his thing.
I'll toss it in the show notes.
And it's and I thought about going, but it's
in Iowa.
It's in Iowa, yeah.
I mean, it's at Brownells.
Yeah, it's at Brownells, and if it's a good location for them and all that, great. From what I understand, this is their second or third year doing it, and they've had a good time. I believe Matt from Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns is planning on going.
Yeah, my problem with it is, in addition to the travel, the cost of entry is $50, but it's at Brownells, so the cost of exit is much, much higher.
Well, and also, from what I understand, that $50 also gets you a T-shirt,
lunch,
and a couple other things. So
access to the Q&A panels.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So and you and I both done enough conventions, etc., that $50 for a weekend convention or conference it's
not terrible.
Not bad at all.
Not bad at all. Yeah. No. He's still, the sponsors are still the ones seriously paying for what's going on.
Yeah, and I've had a couple of events in the past decade or so that took place at or near Brownells, and the ones that were near Brownells involved Brownells,
and
it just never worked. And my wallet is thankful. I mean, I told you the story about going and doing the training at Numrich Gun Parts.
Yes.
Yeah, they got one student for free, effectively.
Yeah.
And that was, they said they would fill they come back with a list. We'll fill it while you're teaching. We'll give you the employee discount. And I still covered at least one student's cost of training.
So it was a double mitzvah.
Yeah, and I can't even imagine. I mean, my wish list on the Brownells website is several $1,000s long.
Have you broken into the tens of thousands?
Since I don't actually get entire firearms on that list, not yet.
Got to pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers.
Well, luckily, a lot of I've been a customer of Brownells for 30 years. I don't like this math, but yes, 30 years, 30 plus years. It was early 90s was when I started buying stuff from them. So I've got a lot of the smaller tools already.
Right.
So I have quite possibly spent over $10,000 with them over the years. And I'd do it again.
And you will.
Yes, as long as I can get the money, yes.
Right. So I'm guessing Weird, you're the one that posted this next story.
Yes. Yeah, it appears that we mentioned before that a tourist was leaving the Turks and Caicos and had 4 rounds of quote unquote hunting ammunition in their bag,
which could be anything from 22 long rifle up.
Yes. And rather than do what they've been doing, which seems somewhat reasonable, which is pay a fine for this and then get the hell out of Dodge
and don't come back.
Exactly. They've started arresting people and
make examples of them.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Well, that's exactly what's going on, because previously it had been a fine and kicked out of the country. Now there's a minimum sentencing of something like 12 years. That goes beyond virtue signal, which this is, and well into making an example of someone.
Well, didn't someone Weird, I thought you mentioned that somebody involved on the Turks and Caicos government side said they were making examples of people?
Yes. Yeah, the judge.
Yeah, so when a judge says we're doing this to make an example of you, that's not a good sign.
No.
Yeah.
And so I also mentioned that my wife and I have been there, and we had a wonderful time and found it to be a lovely island. And I said, people should go back. And that's clearly a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm reminded of not to the same level by far, but there was an incident a number of years ago in New York City where the police found somebody found and called the police because they found some empty shell casings on the street. There were 22 shell casings. And the police showed up and they closed down the street for an investigation.
Right.
And people were talking about how traumatized they were that this kind of thing could happen in their area, et cetera, et cetera. And then a minor comment appeared and the story vanished. And the minor comment was that they were not, in fact, 22 long rifle empty shell casings.
Yep.
They looked like them, but they were not. Anybody want to guess what they actually were?
Well, at first I thought you were going to do the ones about earplugs, but
Nope.
Then when you said that they looked like them, that shot that out of the water. But I have seen that. People claiming that the
Yes.
little foam earplugs are bullets.
Yes. But what looks a lot like a 22 rimfire empty case? Bueller? If your brain is struggling to reach fastener gun cartridges, you are correct.
Because they are.
Yes, there was construction going on.
Right, yeah.
And
I still don't
use
know
a
what this
fastener
is.
gun- basically, they're 22 blanks.
A nail gun.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a
okay.
22 blank fired nail gun.
I understand now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you use one of those, I mean, I have a very simple one. It's just basically a slide open, slide close, etc. But when you open it, it ejects the empty fastener cartridge. And if you're doing construction, you're probably not too worried about policing them if it's outside in the street.
Mm-hmm.
Because when is construction ever worried about policing anything?
If ever, right at the very end.
Maybe.
And that's just for recoverable materials that they can reuse. Maybe.
Right.
But yeah, so that's what it was. Somebody found some fastener gun blanks, fired blanks on the street in New York City, and they closed down the street for hours to investigate. And people were talking about the trauma. And this was reminded by the whole Turks and Caicos things about,
Mm-hmm.
and also again stories that Weird has told about checking the treads of his boots before leaving the range.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and there was the time that I went to New York City, and when I came back and was unpacking after the trip, I was going through my carry-on bag, and there's a lump in this little itty-bitty pocket that I tend to forget is on this backpack. Oh, there's a 9mm hollow point in there that I carried onto the airplane and went to New York and then carried on the airplane again and came back.
One of the times that my wife and I flew from Albany Airport in New York to Palm Beach Airport in Florida, it was either when we unpacked when we got there or when we unpacked when we got back. I forget which, but a fully loaded magazine for my 1911 was in one pocket of my carry-on bag.
Right.
And that was, I believe I brought the gun with me, but it was in a checked bag, which at that point was a big old hard-sided Samsonite suitcase.
Mm-hmm. Of course, then there's when a certain somebody messaged me saying that they had forgotten their out the front knife.
Their baby out the front knife.
When it and it was in their carry-on bag when they went to Chicago.
Not quite as bad as if that had happened on your most recent trip, but close.
Right. Of course, speaking of such things, if it's okay with Weird if I jump a little bit.
Oh, please.
So
wait, we follow the show notes?
I mean, sort of. So
More like guidelines, really.
Yes. Speaking of automatic knives, and also you tend to have butterfly knives in the same breath when you're talking about laws. There's been more interesting things going on in Hawaii. So, for those,
and shockingly, it involves the Ninth Circuit.
Oh, don't
sort
worry.
of.
We got more shocking Ninth Circuit stuff later.
Sort of.
Oh, I thought that's what you were referencing. Sorry, I'll back out. I'll shush.
So the link that somebody posted in here was from last year, where
Yes, it is 2020.
where a appellate panel had declared that the Hawaiian ban on automatic knives and butterfly knives was unconstitutional because a knife is an arm and Second Amendment and all that fun stuff. Which the state has appealed to the Ninth Circuit en banc. In the meantime, Hawaii has just recently, at the urging of their governor, passed a law legalizing butterfly knives and switchblades. You still can't carry them concealed. Looks like you may be able to carry them openly, but you can at least now own them in the privacy of your own home, buy them, sell them, trade them, whatever.
Yeah, it says manufacture, sale, transfer, possession, and transportation of butterfly knives, balisongs, switchblades, and gravity knives, as well as brass knuckles, including trench knives and karambits, swords, and spears.
Yes.
So you may be able to open carry a spear.
Right. I'd have to actually look at the law to see all of that, but the article that I had linked was by KnifeRights, who generally get things absolutely correct. And this means that the governor saw what was going on with the court case and went, yeah, if we don't go ahead and change this, the courts are going to make us. And if the courts make us, that's at the en banc level or, at SCOTUS, that means that not only do we lose this ability to ban the evil sharp pointy things, but so do other states. So let's go ahead and change the law and just tell and then ask the courts to rule the case moot because, well, now the person who wants to own a butterfly knife can. of course, speaking of KnifeRights, also I'd like to mention that they just kicked off their yearly fundraising raffle, and they've got some rather good things up for people to possibly win. And I have mentioned them a good amount, that they're good people, definitely Second Amendment supporters, and their whole thing is hey, Second Amendment isn't, yes, the right to keep and bear guns is a good thing, but Second Amendment isn't just about firearms.
Mhm.
Let's get knives into the mix as well. And they have been doing amazing things, like beating up Hawaii and making them do this. So they deserve some money for that.
Yes. They do great work, and they have a fraction of the budget of any of the gun organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And they tend to slip below notice because they're not as high profile as a bump stock ban or an arm brace ban.
Right, which, when you think about it, there's a lot of places that, the common pocket knife that I carry in my pocket every day, there's still places in this country where that is illegal, and that is just silly. And I was, last week I was talking with some folks, and they were in London, where no, you can't carry a knife, and they were arguing with me for well, why would you do that? So, I find it really freaking useful. I use it almost on a daily basis.
Yep. And back to what you were saying about some place where it's illegal, was one of KnifeRights' relatively recent wins was New York City, with the quote-unquote gravity knife ban, which was any knife that an officer could open one-handed using any technique.
Oh yeah,
right.
The one
including holding it by the blade and flipping out the handle.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have a couple knives that, yeah, sorry, officer, you're not going to be able to do that with this design, but most of them, not so much.
You could do it with a Buck 110.
You can do it with a Swiss Army knife. You can do it with Victorinox. Yeah.
I used to do that with a Swiss Army knife, actually, and I only had one hand available.
It's bad for the knife. Don't do it.
No,
but you can.
It's like snapping a revolver cylinder shut by flipping the revolver. Don't do that either.
Yeah.
But in New York City, and it wasn't just the knife itself, it was the method of carry. So according to the laws in New York City at that time, which have since been changed, if I had the knife completely in my pocket, I was fine. But if the pocket clip was visible, I was not.
Mm-hmm.
So they repealed a chunk of that law, and I believe they successfully mooted the case, didn't they?
I think they mooted the case, and they repealed just about the entirety of the law, except for there's still restrictions on if you are on public transit or on the subway.
Yes, it is not a law. It is a Metro Transit Authority, MTA regulation or policy. So it's not a law, but they can still throw you off the subway if they see a knife pocket clip.
Yeah.
So, good times.
And again, over pocket knives. God.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we can't keep knives out of prisons. Not pocket knives necessarily, but knives.
Well,
because you give a guy a scrap of metal, an abrasive surface, and time, you got a knife.
Well, and just about anybody who goes, well, there's no need to carry a knife, you will, and it happened with these folks, if you argue with them long enough to, well, yeah, I guess my grandfather did always carry a knife with him. It's like, you know why? Because they're really stupidly useful.
Yes. Oh, your grandfather carried a knife all the time? How many people did he stab?
Yeah.
I mean, I point out the fact that, like, I very visibly was the one carrying a pocket knife around the office at a place that I worked at, and everybody asks for a knife. And the same thing with my house. Like, oh, do you have, like, I've been in like my pajamas, and my wife has been like, oh, do you have your knife? And I'm just like, no, I'm in my pajamas. I haven't put my knife on yet. That goes on with the pants.
Fail.
Well, it's.
You need a jammy knife now.
I mean, you were wearing your pajamas, so you were wearing pants.
Exactly.
And
Do
your
jammies have pockets?
And I was in my house. There was a half dozen knives within a few steps of where I was.
Within a few steps is not on you, sir.
That is true. I will try harder.
Okay. Yeah, actually, another nice story was I was doing a training at a state facility in Rochester, New York, and the company would ship the books. And because they are books and they're going through a shipping company, they were very well taped up.
Right.
And so they're trying to get the boxes open to get the books out for the students. And, someone's trying to saw it away with their car key. And I just look at them and I pull out my pocket knife, open it, zip, 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 box is open, all done. And everyone's looking a little surprised. And one woman goes out to check with the administration if I can have that.
Yeah.
She apparently did not like the answer because she didn't come back.
What kind of knife was it?
I believe it was my Kershaw 1910, which has a flipper tab.
Mm-hmm.
Although I did not do the wrist flick, pop it open. I opened it with both hands.
I've done that a couple times where I flicked it open and flicked it closed fast enough that there were a few folks that went, "Wait, you clearly cut that open somehow."
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have done that with this because it was a good-sized shipping box with lots of tape on it. But
yeah, that happened at a family gathering. I think it was Thanksgiving, where someone was trying to open something, and I just here, grabbed it, out came my knife, flick, open, back in the pocket. One of the people at the party was like, "Where did that knife come from?" And I'm like, and I turned around and I said, Have you not heard the term pocket knife? And he chuckled about it. And then somebody else said, "Don't ask Weird about his pocket gun." And there was lots and lots of guffaws, but there was a 38 in the other pocket.
Yes. Yep. And Oddball, didn't you have an incident where you opened a knife at some family gathering and startled someone?
Oh, dear Lord. Yeah. Panya's sister has a little bit of a knife phobia, and one year for Christmas, Panya's father gave me a what's the name of that knife? The World War II engineering. No, it Woodsman's pal.
Oh yes. Yes, the brush clearing knife with the hook.
And I pulled it out.
I so want one of those.
I pulled one out. I pulled it out and made a happy noise as I was looking at it. And Panya's sister turned to look to see what was the cause of my glee, and just kind of shrieked. And just the
giant knife.
Yeah, I can kind of understand why you're. If you have any sort of phobia, that this would trip you out.
I'm looking it up. It's a utility Kopesh.
Yes. It's got a machete on one side and a bill hook on the other.
Yeah.
I just tossed a link. Now, this is the World War II version with the handguard and the manual. Mm-hmm. And if anyone was interested in getting me one, I would be really happy.
You know what? Throw it in the show notes just so everyone's happy, because it brings me joy.
Yes,
I will do this.
Yeah, I mean, it is a versatile solution to a large number of problems. Were you just carrying it, Oddball? I think I missed that part.
No, it was Christmas. We were opening up presents. And that was a present for me. So I opened it up and pulled it out and went, "Oh, neat!" And she turned around to see what it was, and there I was, grinning and looking at a giant knife.
I mean, from her perspective, it was a giant knife. From your perspective, it was a moderately sized knife.
It's a pretty good sized knife.
Yeah, I mean, for a pocket knife, it's big, but for a brush knife, it's not.
And what else is remember in the weight class? Because that bill hook is going to add some beautiful axe-like weight to the head.
it is truly wonderful for dealing with brush.
Oh yeah, I totally want one for that reason too.
But yeah, I can also like I said, I can understand if somebody has a blade phobia, just turning around and seeing someone holding that thing. I can understand that being a little unnerving.
According to the Amazon page, the item weight is 2.84 pounds.
It's also
And ironically,
$200, so that's too rich for me.
Ironically, a couple years later, I bought her a nice, large kitchen knife that she had been wanting. So,
Kitchen knives are different; they're useful,
right?
says to the man who owns a yard sickle.
It was said ironically, so I'm okay.
I know. All right, so where are we here on this show on the show notes?
Oh, me just looking up because I want one of those folding sickles.
We are at ShotSpotter.
Yes.
Yeah, this one. I'm trying to remember who found this one.
That was me.
I think that was you. That was you, David. And so you found it. You found a tweet, and
I followed up on it.
Yeah, and I dug up an article, but evidently the gem is off the rose on ShotSpotter.
Bloom is off the rose.
Yeah, I'm mixing my metaphors. Pardon me.
It's a Malaphor.
Yes, and Senators Ed Markey, and Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, and I don't know who Ron Wyland is, but and then Ayanna Pressley, who is also quite famous in the news, are essentially calling out ShotSpotter for being racist. And this, of course, was the darling of the gun control movement, because it was going to solve all the things, and it was going to work so well, and everybody was doing a real good job at covering up how horrible it was, because they really don't work all that well. And and of course also David Chipman, the person who was attempted to be the ATF director under President Biden, but was discovered to have some nasty little skeletons in his closet. I'll just leave it at that. He was
folks, go back and listen to some of the earlier episodes with Chipman Watch.
Mm-hmm. And he after leaving the ATF, I believe it was his first gig out of ATF, was for working as a salesman for ShotSpotter, and may still be working for the Giffords anti-gun group. I'm not sure. I could look up his LinkedIn.
Not right now.
No,
save it for later.
But yeah, they don't like it anymore.
Is it racist?
Yeah, I'm seeing if I can find the money quote that was on there. ShotSpotter censors are in overwhelmingly Black, Brown, and Latin communities at the request of law enforcement. Which, I mean, that is how Massachusetts handles crime control. That's the same place. Miles and I were talking about it the other day. We noted that if your town has under 80% white people, those were the towns where they would give you a hard time when you applied for a gun permit.
Totally not racist.
But it's totally not racist. So yeah, that's good, because I'll be more than happy to see ShotSpotter dismantled, because it's a huge waste of taxpayer money.
Mm-hmm.
So
kind of like Cobus was for New York.
Yes, and it's something gun control doesn't like, and I like the fact that I don't recognize that other name that's on the in this group here, but I know that Ed Markey, Ayanna Pressley, and Elizabeth Warren are all extremely anti-gun, and it'd be great for them to kill a anti-gun thing.
Wah wah.
Yep. And now this one, Oddball and I can handle kind of tandem, because let's see. No, this is a different one. This is another one of those temporary restraining orders, and this one is against the engaged in the business rule that
Yes.
Yeah.
we talked about previously when it was unveiled, where they're being a whole lot. I mean, honestly speaking, the weird part about it is that they're invoking a new rule, but they changed very, very little, including maintained an extremely vague sense of of what it meant to engage in the business of selling firearms.
Trust
And
us.
yeah, but given that it was Steve Beeple-Sneets and under the direction of President Biden, just because the words weren't changed that much doesn't mean that the enforcement of those words is going to stay the same.
Well, and it is definitely having the effect that they want, because everybody seems to be declaring this as, oh, they're saying you cannot sell as a private individual, period. When that's not really true, but it does. What I was hoping was actually going to clarify some in the law has just made things muddier over what the ATF will consider as, no, you're in the gun business, you need a license, and just personal sales.
Which, I mean, honestly, an end to personal sales is the whole point of the universal background checks was trying to do.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
so this is just another avenue for them to reach that goal.
Mm-hmm. And again, part of that is because with the current background check scheme, regardless of the fact that the law explicitly says that they're not allowed to create a background database of
firearms or owners, I believe.
Firearms or owners. That's what the 4473 does.
Oh yeah. One of the ones that really annoyed me was the person saying, well, since it's not all in the same place, it's not really a database.
No, it's a database that's difficult to search.
Yeah. It's still a registry.
Mm-hmm.
If they get 1 point on that line, they can find the store and they can go through those 4473s until they find you. And hey, maybe they'll take a picture of a bunch of others while they're doing it.
And we know that they can, and we know that they can fairly quickly, because what was it, a day before we knew that? Oh yeah, the Covenant School shooter in Nashville owned 3 firearms and bought them from these stores.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all, they always go really, really fast, which makes me wonder. Obviously, also so many gun shops are switching over to electronic 4473s.
Yeah,
right.
Now, another thing is in Tennessee, the Tennessee background check, TICS, still I think one of the most honestly named government programs, or honestly acronymed. When you put in the TICS information, it is the firearm and the purchaser. So their driver's license and the serial number of the firearm are in that same record.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and 4473 has your name, your address.
It has all that information as well.
Yeah.
The difference is TICS is stores can choose to use paper or E4473s. TICS is pretty much only electronic at this point. And yeah, they're not supposed to store that data, but really? So it wouldn't surprise me if after the Covenant School shooter, if Tennessee just pulled up the database they totally don't have and looked up the purchaser's name.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But even with doing it in a state that just does NICS.
Yeah, it's the old-fashioned way.
There's still data that obviously the store is communicating back to the federal check system.
Yes.
So, which I assume is pretty much the same as what Tix is requiring.
Yeah.
All right.
Moving on.
Yeah, who put this last one in here?
Well, I
Or
think you
just
mean
me?
last three.
Yes.
Those are all me.
Okay.
Okay, so there have been some unusual things happening. 2 things in the courts and 1 thing in Congress. And this, I'm going to make the pun now because I don't know if I'll remember it later, but the thing that's happening in Congress is incongruous.
Is Congress making progress?
To a certain extent, yeah. All right, so I'll just jump into that one first. So you may have heard about it. It's what's known as the Rifle Act, because everything has to be a backronym. And, I'm trying to find what it stands for, and I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, the short version here is that there are 13 senators being led by Tom Cotton of Arkansas. And they want to, and in fact are introducing legislation to remove the $200 tax stamp that the NFA requires on short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and suppressors under the NFA.
And
By the way, I found the backronym, Aaron.
Yes, please.
It is repealing illegal freedom and liberty excises.
Okay.
that was tortuous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's the thing with bacronyms.
Yep.
It's like that one thing, what do you think this stands for? Well, I really think someone really wanted to spell shield for the organization. So yeah, they are trying to remove the tax. And what they point out here is that it doesn't modify the checks, the registration, the paperwork. All it does is reduce the requirement of the tax stamp from $200 to $0. And if it did that and only that, it would be enough. I don't know if this is going to happen, but Dianu, exactly. But I'm just happy that someone in Congress is doing this, and they're putting their reputation on the line in order to pass legislation. But as has been pointed out across the Gunternet, the reason that a lot of these things are permitted to stand, these things I know are vague, but it's because the government has baked into the Constitution the ability to levy taxes, and things which would be considered unconstitutional are considered constitutional if they're a tax. And these $200 tax stamps are very obviously taxes. If you remove the tax, all you have is a regulation, which very obviously cannot stand in the face of Bruin. And so this is going to be a very interesting one, too. Again, if all they do is remove the money, that is enough. But then they can go, okay, now that there's no longer taxation involved, then this is clearly an infringement of the Second Amendment and must be repealed. And I think that's just delightful.
Incrementalism.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
I love it.
Yep.
And now I am writing a little Dianu for it.
All right. So, still on the topic of the National Firearms Act, there is something that's been going on in Texas, and I want to say that it happened in 2021, and it's been progressing through the courts. And unfortunately, this is the first I've heard of it, so maybe this is the first of many of the claims. That's a problem when I'm talking and reading ahead. This is something that may be new to our listeners as well. And so, Texas has passed a law, and this law was passed under the direction of Governor Abbott. And they passed a law which said that if a suppressor is entirely manufactured in the state of Texas using components that are sourced from Texas, I mean, little things like screws and fasteners are, they are excluded, but things like, the baffles and the casing and, the important parts of a suppressor are made in Texas, and it's going to be used in Texas and not cross the state line, then the NFA doesn't apply because since everything is done inside the state, it doesn't cross state lines. Therefore, interstate commerce isn't invoked. Therefore, the NFA doesn't apply. And the reason why they're doing this is because Texans have approximately half of the suppressors in the United States.
Yeah. Go Texas.
Exactly. And what's more interesting about this is that Texas further realizes that there are a great many Texans who would not want to test this rule and end up in federal jail waiting for a trial. And so they said, so now that we've passed this law, what we're going to do is, if you let us know that because of this law, you want to buy a suppressor, you plan to, you're interested, whatever, contact us. And through you, we have standing. And so, we'll file with your name. And so there's a bit of a kerfuffle going on involving, well, can a state have standing via its citizens? And that's something that's going to be determined, but I do think it is interesting and good on Texas for doing this. Because I know that the federal government has more money than Texas, but Texas has a lot of money. And so they can probably weather most of the BS legal requirements that the federal government will throw against this. They are really committed to winning this. And of course, once that happens, as we've seen with all sorts of other things, that opens the floodgates.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know if they're going to win, but I really applaud their inventiveness and their courage.
Yeah, didn't Montana try this almost 20 years ago?
Several states.
Yeah, and I wish them luck. I hope I'm wrong.
Well,
but it's the thing of it's been a long-standing thing since Weer'd versus Filburn, I think. That
was the general welfare shenanigans.
Since it might have been bought from out of state, even though it wasn't, and it was demonstrably not, then someone and there's nothing stopping someone from taking it out of state, et cetera, that it does still affect interstate commerce, and therefore the federal government can regulate anything it wants.
Well, I think the big difference here is that the other states just passed the law and left the citizens to fend for themselves. Texas is actually filing on their behalf for standing.
I'm talking about a case from the 30s, I think, that involved the federal government going after a farmer for growing crops on his own land.
Yes, that's Weer'd versus Filburn, right. And it was because he grew too much wheat, which meant that he wasn't purchasing wheat from another state, therefore it was interstate commerce.
Yeah.
It is one of the top 10 worst decisions from the Supreme Court.
But unfortunately, it's been something that the Supreme Court has been extremely reluctant to go back on, because that case is a linchpin for the federal government being able to do a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah. FDR's, it was LBJ's Great Society programs, wasn't it? And then there were the FDR programs. All of those are basically on the foundation of Weer'd versus Filburn.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are all for the general welfare. And if Weer'd versus Filburn was re-examined and decided wasn't what it should be, then all of those programs would be at risk.
And there have been cases where a state has tried to say, well, since it's all inside the state, then the federal law doesn't pertain, and the courts have said, yeah, it doesn't work that way. You can be more strict, which is how California gets away with their emissions stuff, which they need to be spanked over, but they won't. But basically the only time that I'm aware of a state being able to say, yeah, the federal law doesn't apply, it has been with regards to marijuana, and that's just simply because the federal government really doesn't have any desire to actually enforce that law.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it does seem that attitudes are changing, so maybe the government will lose its stomach for this too. I mean, I'm not going to say that the post-Bruin landscape, and with suppressors being regulated as firearms, and of course SBRs and SBSs actually being firearms, I don't know that Bruin would specifically filter into this case, but the decision might affect the way that the judge views it. Who knows? I'm just saying it looks promising.
Oh, like I said, I would love to be proven wrong on it. I hope I am, but I mean, it's up there with the, I see people also cheering on the, somebody has filed to repeal the NFA. So yeah, that's not going anywhere.
Not all at once.
It'd be nice, and it should. It's unconstitutional for it to be there, but it's not going anywhere. Which I hate to be the wet blanket, but that's the way I can't really see any other way around that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say wet blanket. I would say realist.
Mm-hmm.
So let me cheer you up then with some good news with this final topic.
Yes.
So the Ninth Circus actually got something right, and in so doing, overturned a federal gun law. Now, there were a lot of names and a lot of cases thrown at this. I don't claim to have understood all of the niceties, but here's the important point here. So you have a gentleman whose name currently escapes me because I'm so good with names. Here we go. U.S. versus Duarte. Now, Mr. Duarte is a felon, multiple felon, but a non-violent felon. I haven't found what he did, but I'm pretty sure it's something involving drugs, because that's the only sort of non-violent felony where someone would want to carry a gun for self-defense. It makes sense. So
white-collar financial crimes, too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, possibly, but usually they aren't considered multiple felons. The context I got was he's been convicted multiple times. But anyway...
Whatever, yeah.
Oh, okay. It could be he was convicted of multiple felonies at the same time.
Like I said, I got this pretty close to the time of recording the show. I didn't research it as thoroughly as I wanted to, but here's the thing. So he was pulled over for some sort of driving infraction, and the police found the gun, felon in possession. Okay, but this was challenged under Bruin because he was carrying a firearm for self-defense, which is what the Second Amendment is for. He was carrying a gun that was recognized as being legal for self-defense. The only reason that he was arrested for this particular charge was because he was a felon in possession. 18 U.S.C. Section 922 G1. And the argument was, well, under Bruin, there's no real reason for him to have lost his right to keep and bear arms, because at the time of the drafting of the Second Amendment, people didn't lose their rights. And so this got all the way to the Ninth Circuit, and it was an en banc hearing from 3 judges. And what was interesting is that the argument the state took, that they didn't dispute the purpose of the Second Amendment, they didn't dispute that the firearm was being carried for self-defense. What they disputed was that because he was a felon, he didn't fall under the classification of the people, as in the right of the people to keep and bear arms. And this
So
was...
he's an unperson.
Yes, and this was justified, among other things, because Bruin made many references to law-abiding citizens, and because he's a felon, he wasn't law-abiding. And I think everyone here will realize just what a poison pill that prospect is, because if you're convicted and you're not the people, and you don't have that constitutional right, then by extension, you don't have any constitutional rights.
Like quick and
Right.
speedy trial, jury of your peers,
Protection from cruel and unusual punishment. Exactly.
search and seizure, yeah.
Yeah.
Although I also wonder with this case if it has any connection to the case against that great American modern artist. Weird, you know what I'm talking about. Weird, you awake?
Well, I
Give me a
don't
hint.
know what you're talking about, so tell me.
I believe some of his art is in the White House.
Yes.
Please stop being coy and just say the name.
Would that be Hunter Biden?
That is who it would be,
Oh,
because he also was convicted of a drug felony, and
No, he was not. He was never charged with any drug crimes.
oh no, he admitted to using drugs on the 44 to lying about using drugs on the 4473.
He said he was not an addict of drugs on the 4473, and then and then he wrote a book about his history of drug abuse.
Right, including crack cocaine.
That openly said that he was using crack during the time frame of which he bought this gun.
Yeah, so he admitted to being a drug addict. He admitted to therefore lying on a federal form, which is a felony, as I understand it.
so
So I do wonder if there's some connection there.
I don't know about that. But this challenge was brought by the defendants. It's an organization called Federal Public Defenders. And so, it wasn't just his lawyer, but the public defender organization brought this suit, case, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, say what you will about the Ninth Circus, and there's a lot to say, but they are very big on individual rights, in my experience. And so this particular law, this judgment was overturned. But here's the disturbing part. It wasn't unanimous.
No.
There was a third judge who made, again, that argument about how, Bruin only mentions the law-abiding, and so only the law-abiding people are the people, and everyone else doesn't have rights. And that's incredibly disturbing to me, because the way this was argued, it seems very obvious that it should have been unanimous, and it wasn't. So that is disturbing, but still, the Ninth Circuit got something right for once, and that's amazing.
Right. And just for some clarification, Aaron, is it a group called Federal Public Defenders, or I thought it was he was using Federal Public Defenders, as in public defense, public defense lawyers.
Well, I was under the impression, and like I said, I did this pretty close to the last minute, that it was an organization.
Okay,
But
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain it was that he's actually the lawyer or lawyers working for him are Federal Public Defenders. So good on them on definitely sticking up and fighting for their client, and this is why we have public defenders out there.
Okay, so I went through the transcript here, and this is by Washington Gun Law, and he says that this challenge was brought exclusively by the Federal Public Defender's Office.
Okay, so yeah.
So that's where I got organization, because when I hear office, I think of the entity as opposed to individual lawyers.
Oh yeah. And in the summary for the video, he has Federal Public Defenders in caps. So
Yeah.
I definitely understand the confusion.
Okay.
That's why I was asking for the clarification.
Okay. So yeah, Ninth Circuit got it right, but now there's a circuit split on this issue, and so this is very likely going to end up in front of the Supreme Court. Whether they grant cert or not, we don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's also one more step in the ninth. It'll go before a full panel in the ninth. This was the 3-judge panel.
Really? I was under the impression that there was the choice between full panel or 3-judge, and it was one or the other. It wasn't one then the other.
No, it's the 3-judge panel, and then it's the full panel.
Well, all right. We may be celebrating early, but still,
it's still a big deal.
It's also worth celebrating.
And I don't know what caused this gentleman to run afoul of the law in the past. Like you said, whatever it was non-violent felonies, which drugs are highly likely, but there are a ton of things these days that can cause you to have a felony conviction that you ask your average person and they go,
"That's a felony?"
Yeah, that's like I have a family member who recently got hit with a felony charge for messing with the emissions on his semi truck.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of things that can become or are flat out felonies that are not violent or drug related.
Well,
I mean, I mentioned white collar crimes, but the fact that it says multiple felonies implying multiple felony arrests,
right,
leads me towards what Erin is suggesting.
So there's a link that I'm going to put in the show notes, and it's a reference to a book I've seen for quite a long time. It's called 3 Felonies a Day: How the Feds Target the Innocent.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that's really my point, is whether it's drugs in his past or or tax evasion or whatever. There's a bunch of things that are no-nos. And we can argue whether they should be a no-no or not on a case-by-case basis, but there's a lot of things that that a lot of people will even agree that no, you shouldn't have done that and you should be punished for it, but should it be something that hangs over your head for the rest of your life?
Yeah, and costs you your rights.
Right. And I think that this is a big step in correcting that.
Well, as has been noted before, once you have paid your debts to society and you're out, you should have all of your rights returned to you, because if you can't be trusted, then you should be back in jail. Plus, there's the whole, okay, you can't have guns, but we all know that you can still do massive damage with other things, like knives and gasoline, or matches and gasoline, knives, fast-moving cars.
Yeah.
So.
All right, does that wrap it up?
I think it does.
I think that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you like me to read my rhyme about the Rifle Act?
Yes, please.
If they removed the NFA tax stamp fee but left suppressors, Daenu. If they removed suppressors from the NFA but left SBRs and SBSs, Daenu. If they removed SBRs and SBSs from the NFA but left AOWs, Daenu. If they removed AOWs from the NFA but left machine guns, Daenu. If they removed machine guns but left the rest of the NFA, Daenu. And once again, for those folks who are not familiar, Daenu is Hebrew for "it would have sufficed us," or "it would do." And at that point, I think the only thing that would be left on the NFA would be destructive devices.
Yeah, though even that could be challenged because of the very, very arbitrary rule on how we determine what is a destructive device and what is not, because shotguns would be destructive devices.
Yeah, I was going to say shotguns that aren't for sporting purposes.
And remember, kids, just because it's used in a sport doesn't mean it's for sporting purposes.
Correct.
It makes me angry every time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I actually, I will occasionally see my pulse when I come across that.
But Aaron, do you know who doesn't make me angry, like at all?
Our listeners.
Oh, I
Yes!
thought you were referring to Dodd.
Yes. Well, you guys both make me very angry.
But we're charming imps.
I mean, it's kind of your bag.
It's not my bag, man.
But yes, thanks to each and every one of our listeners. We've made it to 300 episodes, and you know what? It's because of you guys, and but especially it's because of our supporters on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/podcast to sign up. You guys are great because this does cost us money to keep this show going, and you've helped defer those costs. That's awesome, and we're going to Atlanta, and so but of course, as I say all the time, it's not like a tip jar. We're not mooching, we're not panhandling here. We're selling you stuff. The stuff we've got is more podcasts. So we got things like you can get this podcast a couple of days early. Also, we have bonus content like the hilarious blooper reels, the ACP film tracks, and the ACP mag dump.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I've got a blog. It's called WeerdWorlds.com. That's WEERD World.com. And hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me at Linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And David, where can people find you?
Well, Saturday mornings you can find me sitting outside of synagogue, or if they record at a more reasonable time on Handgun Radio.
And David, we have any noisemakers in case there's some trouble?
Yes, it's like a whistle or something.
Yes.
I'm also a contributor on the Blue Collar Prepping blog, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. And I'm also a published author, and books with my stories can be found on Amazon under the names Brenna Bach and David Bach.
Oddball, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me right here, and I have a blog at gunscarstech.com and on the ACP Facebook group, and I'm also a regular on Handgun Radio because I don't sleep. And
we already know you're in IT.
And my wife has a podcast called Meowcore about heavy metal and cats. You should check it out.
All right. And thanks to Nate Spencer for our wonderful music. 300 episodes.
I'm just concerned that there were no stories about 300 Blackout or 300 Rum.
Well, at the very, very beginning, I referenced the movie 300.
That's true.
Yes, and I did put up the graphic of the 300 Blackout and 5.7 cartridge. Actually, photograph. I took that photograph myself, and then I gave them their privacy.
And it wasn't long after you guys started that you called me up by name on the podcast, informing me that I was going to make segments for you.
Aaron wasn't quite as draconian. No, that's not the right word. I wasn't subject to a press gang, let me put it that way. But I was strongly encouraged that I had something to contribute.
Mm-hmm.
And if I knew what was good for me, I would do so.
I batted my eyes at you threateningly.
Before I had actually listened to that, but before I had actually listened to that episode, I got a message from Adam saying, "So you can borrow my recording gear if you need it, since you may need it." So, what now?
Our methods of conscription are assorted, and so is our podcast.
Nice.
Nice.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.